if we think about the key three, I want to take some time to really think about how we could apply the key three to retain a teacher. So I have a fictional teacher here, Mr. Williams. I'll give you a second to read through. I'm not going to voice over some of the highlights here. So Mr. Williams is a seventh grade science teacher, 4 years of experience. He started his teaching career with you. He comes to school every day. He's got solid relationships with students and families. In your school, though, last year you lost 9 teachers off of a staff of 45. Some of the teachers left to go into neighboring districts. Some left teaching altogether. And then between August and October, you've lost another 2 teachers. And so you've lost 11 teachers total. Mr. Williams is now filling in or stepping up, and he's a second most experienced teacher on the 7th grade team, third most experienced teacher, science teacher in the school, and he's supporting his grade level and the science content team through sharing materials and resources. He's also taken on some planning of grade level events and as a grade level chair. So you've had this turnover. You've been fortunate enough to be able to backfill those teaching positions. The district HR team has come through with folks that you can hire. You have just one long-term sub that's teaching an elective class, and you're happy that every class has a teacher in front of them, but you're concerned about the instability that the staffing will lead to with future teacher retention. So you may not see this exact scenario, but my guess is that most schools, most districts, see some of the things in here in themselves. Like, it's a reflection. And I want to point out here that a lot of what Justin has talked about so far with enabling systems has been about being proactive. And that's the ideal scenario. But we also have to be reactive sometimes. And sometimes, we have to work with Mr. Williams and make sure that Mr. Williams wants to come back next year when we're put in different situations. And so there's an element of this of being reactive, but also being thoughtful in how we react to the different situations when they arise, right? We don't want teachers leaving in the middle of the year, but sometimes they do. And how we respond to that sends messages to the rest of the staff about their place and their belonging in the school. So we're going to think about how we apply the key three in a really tactile way.
So this first tool really falls under the key three of know teachers genuinely. So specifically, it's establishing weekly one-on-one meetings to retain teachers. So similar to what Justin mentioned earlier, though, if you have 110, high school teachers, meeting with each of them each month might be unrealistic, right? So, but what are the focus teachers or core teachers that you might want to prioritize, and making sure there's time twofold. One, to build a structure around developing teachers, and also providing space and an opportunity to connect to teachers, and really, having them feel like there's a safe space to problem solve and make sure their voice feels heard and that they feel valued in this space. So you'll see there's 4 components here under this tool. So the first one is just like establishing a vision and a purpose for this time. So what are these regular one-on-one meetings? Like, what is the vision for them? Second component is, when would this happen? So determine the schedule, the aligned process, making sure everyone's clear on when this is happening and how. The third big component is implementing them. And then the fourth one is just monitoring the effectiveness of them. And so you'll see a set of questions that fall under each component. And hopefully these will be a really practical way as you go about establishing these meetings to help you plan them out and just make sure there aren't any gaps that are there that you haven't thought through or filled in. So that is the first tool. And so when we think about Mr. Williams, in this very realistic scenario, we can see how an admin setting up time to meet with Mr. Williams on a regular basis to, one, ensure that there's space to develop his content knowledge, his teaching strategies, while also providing space for him to feel valued and heard and bring up problems that might be happening on his grade level team, how that might be really impactful for Mr. Williams and helping him stay at the school.
The second of the key three is engaging teachers meaningfully. And so in this workout, we have a workout on designing recurring communications to retain teachers, right? So specifically tailoring our communications, be it weekly email blasts or monthly videos or daily memos, to ensure that there are pieces in there that are hitting on the key three to retain those teachers. So we know that messages with a consistent format at regular intervals that convey those key pieces of information increase transparency so that teachers can take action. They know what's coming. There aren't surprises, right? If you talk to teachers and the surprises are the things that make teaching really difficult. And so regular communication helps decrease the surprises for teachers. And it empowers teachers and improves equity, right? It makes sure that all teachers have the same information, right? That certain groups of teachers that maybe are close to the principal don't get better information or different information than other teachers, right? So now everybody has the same information and everybody has that level playing field. And using this strategy, when teachers say they don't know what's happening in the school or communication isn't aligned to the goals of the school, it is a good key indicator that, hey, you might need to think about redesigning your recurring communication for teachers. And again, similar to what Jenna showed you, these are questions to ask yourselves. In your recurring communication with teachers, do you know who your audiences are? Are you communicating with all of your teachers or specific groups? Like, what's the purpose of this communication? Are you linking it back to those key performance indicators of the school so that teachers know what you're driving towards? Are you addressing like what's happened in the past, what's happening currently, and what's coming up in the future? And to that end, like, do teachers know what your plans are, the progress towards those plans, and what problems are coming up for the school, and like what action items need to be completed to like keep us on track? And then finally, are we celebrating and reflecting as a school? Like, are we celebrating teachers? Are we celebrating our accomplishments together? Are we reflecting on like what's happened and the direction of the school? So these are some things that help build agency development and equity in those elements of belonging. And the third key three is to celebrate teachers authentically. And this is one of those things that I think a lot of people feel like they do already. But when we can be more systematic about it, we can be more intentional about it, it can have a lot more impact. But gratitude, and I want to like name, like there's a difference here, right? There's gratitude, which is just thankfulness and appreciation. And it's important to show gratitude for things that people do every day. And then there's praise, which is the recognition of really outstanding work, especially the outstanding work that's driving towards the improvement of the school or the KPIs of the school. And so, you'd want to use this strategy if gratitude and celebration happens inconsistently at your school, and being honest about, does everybody receive gratitude? Is there equity in who we're celebrating? You would want to use this strategy if your celebration isn't tied to your school priorities. And then how to use it? There's a lot of different ways to use celebration, but really making it systematic, blocking time in your calendar for gratitude by calling or writing your teachers, building gratitude and celebration to every meeting agenda, like really taking the time to systematize it. And again, I'll show you in a little bit more detail here, the difference between gratitude and praise, and thinking about acknowledgement and showing thankfulness and appreciation versus really like naming when someone has changed the game for your school or has made an impact and something wouldn't be the same without that person. And I want to again highlight the systems here, creating the time in your daily routine, be it 15 minutes for writing emails, having even a tracker to say like, I've made sure that I've expressed gratitude to all of my teachers, and knowing that that's happened. Again, just building it into different systems, be it meeting agendas or your own calendar.
We certainly recognize also that for some people and some leaders, the key three that we just talked about today, generally, each of the systems within the key three, or the three specific systems that we dove deeper into, they might come naturally to you, or they might already be a regular part of your practice. And maybe some of the others you identify through the self-assessment are not. But for other leaders, it might be a newer way of thinking about teacher retention and how One can be intentional, or sometimes, Brian, as you mentioned, like we do have to react, like as the case, like our case study showed, right, with Mr. Williams. And so just know that the tools are a scaffold for you. These are tools to help you coach others or to support your own action. And so with that, we've just laid out a few suggested actions depending on your role. And this is not a comprehensive list by any means, but just to spark some thinking and help you understand how you might move some of these ideas forward. The broader theme in terms of action taking is to really be focused. We know that we shared quite a bit today, and that is certainly by design, because we have a range of different needs across each of the leaders and each of you. And as a teacher, you might say, hey, in your next meeting with the principal, I attended this webinar, here's a self-assessment, or here's this one-on-one meeting, could we try this out? Or would you like me to use this? Can I use this during our one-on-one meetings? And just help the principal to see, or your AP, or whoever you might check in with in a leadership role, how this can be helpful and how they might use it with others. If you're a school leader, take the self-assessment, even if it's one section before you move on to the next thing that you're doing today, and start thinking about what is one key 3 system that might be helpful for you to incorporate into your practice. As a district leader, you can do something similar. Maybe if you're meeting and sitting down with the principals that you support, you could pull up the key 3 self-assessment. Really think about your principals. Maybe you can identify trends, right? Or you're sitting with a principal and having them identify one specific thing. And then finally, perhaps you're on the human resources side of the district and you're supporting employees across the district or across the network or across the organization. Talk to those principal supervisors, the ones that are interacting with them on the day-to-day. Just share and have a conversation, see what they think. Have them consider the key 3, and again, the self-assessment, or perhaps some of the workouts to support them in their work as they're collaborating with principals and helping them to take action when it comes to retention.